to your diaphragm or your stomach. And as you exhale, feel the air leaving your body. So again, you can either look down or close your eyes and just notice your body. Notice any sensations, any feelings, noticing any thoughts. And we're not going to focus on changing them. What we're going to do is we're just going to honor that they're there, and then taking a few more breaths. So breathing in for 4. And exhaling for 4. Just feeling your back against the chair, your feet on the ground, or if they're on the couch, just feel them. Notice them. And bring your awareness back into the room. Just look around. And take a deep breath. Beautiful. So welcome everyone. I'm just looking, I'm going to share my screen. So that's what I'm looking for and why I'm looking down right now. Technology's never been my favorite thing, but I'm embracing it. Okay. Let's get started. So I want to welcome everyone and thank you for taking the time to be here. My goal through today is to really help support you in finding some tools to help you, especially during COVID-19, as it's brought up a lot for people, especially with eating and different things. But if emotional eating is something that you struggle with, it makes sense that it's coming out maybe stronger now. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. And I'm going to go through some different tools. And again, if there are questions, feel free to ask me. So just so you know a little bit about me, for those of you who haven't worked with me or don't know me that well, my name's Natalie. I am a registered psychotherapist. I've studied traditional psychotherapy, spiritual psychotherapy, somatic and sensory motor psychotherapy. So that goes really well with emotional eating, as people tend to live from the head up. And what we're actually doing is connecting to the body. And when we connect to the body is when we can, I guess it's the idea of connecting your body, mind, and soul. So because we live from the head up, what I'm inviting you to do, and what the sensory motor and somatic work it does, is connects you to the body. So we can start living in our bodies, and I'll go more into that. I've also taken a couple certificates in life coaching as well, and mindfulness-based stress reduction, as well as mindfulness meditation. So that's more my clinical background. I've been doing this for about 17 years now. And what led me to this field is my own personal journey. It's why I became a psychotherapist. I struggled with emotional eating since the time I was 6. And my parents really struggled and had to help me. They put me on diet after diet, Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, Slim Fast, just to name a few. And then as I grew older, it became more of a focus for them and as well for me. So they put me, I went to quite a few different nutritionists and dietitians. And every time I lost weight, I put it back on. And eventually I went through surgery. I went through liposuction at 17. And I've had a lot of shame around that, because as soon as I went through that, I put the weight back on. And here my parents spent so much money. And something I wanted so badly, I just couldn't figure out. And so it led me to be quite depressed. I then went to take diet pills to try and cope, which I was on for at least a year, which didn't really help. And then I was just telling one of the women here that I went to a program in North Carolina called the Rice Diet. And I lived there for a couple months and all the weight came off. And then again, I put it back on. So I was so frustrated. I couldn't understand how I wanted something so badly, and yet it just wasn't working. Like, how could I be so successful in different areas and not understand this? Or my self-esteem was so low, and I just kept eating and eating and eating. So I was at kind of a breaking point. And what I did was I decided to kind of do some research and figure out what is going on. So I started exploring. I did my own work, my own therapy, which was, it was life-changing. And then I started connecting that to the emotional eating. And I decided to become a psychotherapist, and here I am. So what I want to provide everyone are tools to support you. Because if we go from the outside in and we only focus on the food, it's very surface level. If we go from the inside out, that's where we make foundational changes. So again, if you have questions, just let me know. Okay, I want you to grab a pen and paper. You actually can use your computer as well, or your phone to take notes. Whatever feels right for you. This is going to be a little bit more interactive. I like teaching, but I also really like when people think for themselves and kind of feel different. So I want you to explore and help you think a bit. And then again, you can always ask me questions tomorrow or whenever it is. Okay, so we actually just checked into the body a bit, but I want you again to close your eyes, or look down if it feels too overwhelming to close your eyes. And I want you just to notice your body and see how it's feeling through everything that's going on in the world right now. We feel other people's energies. We feel our energy. There's a lot of fear that's coming through the news. And I just want you to check in. Take a few breaths. Breathe in for 4. And exhale for 4. And notice where any sensations live in your body. So when I say that, I don't want you to analyze. I just want you to notice, is your heart racing? Do you feel tension in your throat? Do you feel your stomach turning? Do you feel shoulder pain, or your head hurts? Let's just start to get to know your body, because our body has so much wisdom and gives us a lot of information. So just taking a few more breaths. And noticing any thoughts that come up. Allow them to be there, and then just notice the sensation. And again, this is just to have some awareness. We're not analyzing. We just want to know how our body is. And when you feel ready, just open your eyes slowly and gently. For those of you who have done courses with me, you know that I focus a lot on connecting to the body. That was a short version of it. I really want you just to start learning, everyone to start learning that we want to notice our thoughts and notice our body, so that they can stop being at war with each other and butt heads. They can kind of be harmonious, and we can have them working together. So let's dive in. So even at this time when, I've gotten messages from so many people, and some of you even, where food has been feeling like it's destroying you, or you're gaining weight, or you're binging, I really want to point out that food is not the enemy. Food is there right now, and it might sound strange for some of you. It's trying to be a support for you to manage through this time. You may be reaching for food a bit more or a lot more. Food may be something that you're trying to use to manage stress, or if you feel out of control. You may be using it to manage an emotion, boredom, loneliness, sadness, anger. Oftentimes we have 1 or 2 emotions that naturally come to us. So for some people, they get angry right away. For me, I get sad right away, or I get hurt. Those are times where I used to turn to food quite a bit. So again, this is just getting to know yourself and kind of observing yourself and seeing how you use food. But it's not the enemy. It's just trying to help you. It's trying to help support you. So there might be stressors that you're not even aware are affecting you as much as they are. When I received the questions, there were so many about how do I stop binge eating? How do I stop emotional eating? And I'm going to go over this later, but it's really not about the moment when you're going for the food that we need to focus on as much, because then you're at a 10 out of 10, you're elevated. It really is about noticing when you're at like a 4 out of 10 or 5 out of 10. And it could be things that are smaller. So it could be your routine is off. For everyone, the routine has changed now. You're listening a lot to the news or reading a lot about the news. People are talking about COVID-19 all the time, and it's like in your face, and you can't seem to get away from it. People's energy, what I've noticed is there's certain people I speak with, and it brings my energy down. So I often check into my body to see how did I feel after I spoke to that person, because that might make me or someone else turn food if you're not paying attention to how it affected you. Um, Feeling stuck around getting food choices. So I've heard that quite a few times about not being able to go to the convenience store and get ice cream or chocolate, or maybe the opposite as nurturing food. So noticing some stressors in your life. Less structure. So because we're in less of a routine, for many of us, it's less of a routine, or we have kids home, or we can't go out for coffee with friends or walks, or even just seeing people at work. There's less structure, and this can definitely affect your stress levels, your mood. Some people have less quiet time, including myself with my kids at home. Some people have more quiet time. Both are challenging. And as I already mentioned, other people's energies. So these are my things you might not think affect you a ton, but they build up, and then you might be taking it out on food and noticing or thinking it's the food. So I want you to take a couple minutes, and I want you to answer these questions and just write it out. Again, this is my goal with you, is that you start learning to connect with yourself and trusting yourself. So I'm here to support everyone, and I'm going to teach you as much as I can through whether it's this workshop or other workshops or courses. But my goal is that you start trusting yourself, because that's how we start really healing. So I want you to answer these questions and physically write it down. Don't just think about it, because when you write it down, there's a different relationship with it. So notice how you've been managing through this. How have you been managing? What looks different for you? How are you managing before versus now? What is the biggest difference that you notice? Not just with your relationship with food. Look at the bigger picture. What is stressing you the most day to day? So just take a couple of minutes. Okay. So you can take some more time after too. Oftentimes with emotional eaters, they're perfectionists, and they want to get things done, and they want to do it perfectly. I'm inviting you to live in a bit more of a gray zone. Doesn't have to be perfect. The first thing that comes to your mind, you might not finish it. You can come back to it later. But just really notice what's going on for you. Now I want you to notice, what are your other coping tools besides food? So when you're stressed, bored, angry, what do you use? How do you support yourself? You can imagine a toolbox. Food's in there. Food's in there for, I'd say, everyone to some degree. For emotional eaters, they tend to use food maybe 90% of their tools, as opposed to someone who doesn't use food in that way. They might use it 10 or 20%. So it's not that it's bad to use food, but if you're hurting yourself with food, or if it's consuming your mind and taking up a lot of your toolbox, we want to lessen it to maybe, at this point, 70 or 60%. And then eventually kind of find more tools that are supportive. And don't worry if you don't have any other tools that you can think of at this point. We're going to create some, but I want you just to observe where you're at right now. Okay, let's talk about some powerful longer term tools to handle what's going on. So it's not about controlling the food. Again, many people reached out and said, how do I control my relationship with food? Um, it really is about talking about short term tools and long term tools. We're going to go over this in more detail, but I want to give you some ideas. So, having a routine is so critical right now, even if it's having a schedule that's really loose. Like in the morning, I'm going to go for a walk. In the afternoon, I'm going to read a book. In the evening, I'm going to, um, I don't know, call a friend. Having some routine with you right now is important. You can have a loose, what I like to call is a loose routine or a loose structure for some of us. So if right now you don't have anything, just I would say plan something in the morning, afternoon, evening. If you already have some routine and need more, you're open to keep in mind this is a gray area. We don't need to follow a routine like we're walking on a tightrope because that won't serve you. But having something regular. So maybe you do yoga regularly, or maybe you journal regularly in the morning, and then you call a friend, and then you have lunch with, if you live with someone, and then maybe you um, take an online class, like different things. If you're working, then you're going to want to make sure that you have your regular day, but then have connection outside of it or downtime. So just having a really loose schedule. I really love a lot of people that I've spoken with have found speaking with other people who aren't panicking and bringing them down, but have something that's emotionally connecting and fulfilling. So when I say support groups, I don't mean like support groups like joining necessarily a group. It could be a group of friends. It could be any type of group that's supportive to you that you don't feel is draining. Okay. Watching funny videos, movies is great. Um, think about something, maybe a movie from 70s or the 80s that you or 90s that you really liked, or say 60s, depending when you were born and what you enjoy. But finding something that resonates with you, that you can bring up that warm feeling. Again, I'm talking about connecting to the body because we're so busy using our brains, we don't recognize that our body, it gives us a lot of information. I wrote in here avoiding the news and anxious people. So they're a little bit different. I notice that when I watch the news, my heart races and I can feel kind of my eyes popping out of my head. So I shifted it and I went on Twitter, which I don't really use, but I went on Twitter and I just read what's going on. The other time I can listen is I'm in Canada. So the premier and prime minister are a bit easier to listen to than other people might be finding. So for me, they handle it really well, so I can manage that. I even let my kids listen to it sometimes because I trust the way they approach things. When it comes to the news, figure out what the best way to get your information. I will look at once a day, sometimes once every 2 days. I honor how I feel. If I'm already anxious, I know reading the news or listening to the news is not going to help me. If I speak to someone that's anxious around me, I either limit the time I speak with them or I'll sandwich it between, for me, I love meditation. I'll sandwich it with meditation or speaking to someone who's really uplifting or playing with my kids, something where I don't get sucked into someone else's energy. So whether it's the news or anxious people. I wrote in here eating nurturing meals. So it's tricky because food for a lot of people is tricky right now. But what I'm going to mention is it's really important to nurture our bodies. And that's so different than being on a health plan or dieting or binging. I'm talking about getting some fruits and vegetables in and just getting some nutrients and minerals in. Um, so I'm naturally a really big grazer. I could eat and snack all day long. It's kind of my favorite thing is just having like bite size of things. I purposely choose to have 3 nurturing meals a day and snacks, but I make sure, and I have treats. I have what I want. I don't do it from a place of harming myself anymore. What I do is I honor my body by getting the nurturing food in. And then I allow myself, I can have other things, but just making sure you get some nutrients in. It really helps with our mind, our body, our mood. Um, I really like, I mentioned supportive people and supportive groups. Calling someone, there's a couple of people that I feel bring up this warmth and safety in me. Um, Connecting to that, I really highly recommend think of who you feel safe with. It could be a therapist, it could be a friend. For me, it's someone, I have a meditation teacher. I often feel really connected to her and safe. So I'll maybe make an extra session with her. Um, if you're close with your parents or your kids or anyone that makes you feel safe, I'd connect with them. I also really like the idea of starting new hobbies. So if you think about where you're at right now, and everyone's in a very similar situation with different um, obstacles, but we're all having a lot more. I mean, I've been inundated with emails and ideas of things I could be doing if I get one more email about joining a yoga class. I've gotten so many, which is kind of nice though to choose, but I recommend choosing one thing and connecting to it, seeing if it speaks to you, creating a new hobby, whether it's playing the guitar. I just started doing puzzles, which I really like because I find that really calming. Um, it could be taking a bath every night and listening to a podcast. Could be doing like an art class online, whatever that is. Um, Seeing what resonates with you and starting it. And there's nothing wrong starting it and deciding you don't like it, but we won't know until we take the action. So think about what feeling is most triggering for you. Is it loneliness? Is it fear? Is it sadness, anger, boredom? All these things trigger us. Um, so if you have fear that comes up a lot, watching the news is probably going to lead you to wanting to eat food, or maybe not eat, but soothe with food. If you feel lonely a lot, then reading stories about people who are struggling alone right now, or talking to someone else who is in a bad headspace with feeling lonely, that's going to probably want to support you in soothing. If you have anger and you speak to someone or you watch news and there's a lot of anger going on, same thing. Same with boredom. So just notice for you um, what drives you for the food. It could be all of them. However, usually there's one or two that stand out. So I don't tend to get angry as often as I would sad or hurt. So just think of the ones that speak to you. Why we're actually using food when those emotions and feelings come up is to manage the intensity of it. So it's not that if you think about someone that says something in a tone to you that you don't like, it might not throw you over the edge and might not be too intense, but you have a feeling around it. What happens when the feeling is so strong and something feels so out of our control, the intensity of it, we want to manage that because it feels like too overwhelming, it's too much. So that's where we want to turn to food. So let's talk about what actually happens to your body when we feel a really heightened emotion. So I really like this diagram because I find it, you'll get used to it the more I show it to you, but I'm going to make this really simple. When we feel grounded and calm, maybe we speak to someone who's comforting or has a similar outlook. We're in this middle zone called optimal arousal. And that's where we can function. We can think about eating healthy, going for a walk. We feel grounded. When we feel one of those intense emotions, we go into one of two areas. If it feels overwhelming, and you might know this if you turn to food, okay? You might go into hyperarousal or hypoarousal. I'm going to explain what those mean. But that's the area on top where you feel out of your body. And then if you go below to hypoarousal, you're also out of your body. So they're both leaving your body. I'll bring this diagram back, but I just want to explain hyperarousal. And this is just a very simplistic definition. So if you look it up, there's much more information. But what's in your body suddenly kicks into high gear. So you might feel really on, or your heart races, or you might be speaking fast. Some more signs of hyperarousal are you might have difficulty sleeping or concentrating. You might be really easily startled. This used to be a big one for me. My husband would walk in the room and I would just jump. That's how I knew I was hyper aroused. Might be irritable, angry, agitated, that panic, or the hyper alert. Some people get tension and shaking, like their body physically shakes. For a lot of people, their mind races and their heart races. So a lot of people actually live in a state of being in hyperarousal. Those are the people that go, 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 and they can't sit in their body, which might be you.
Sorry, I'm having trouble understanding right now.
Sorry.
Please try a little later.
Alexa just went off on her own. This might be you where you notice you're on all the time. So just noticing if you naturally go into hyperarousal. People have different ways of managing it. For emotional eaters, they tend to go for the food to try and soothe them. Hypoarousal is the opposite. So it's when your body shuts down to feel safe. You might feel like you can't move, very heavy, don't want to get out of bed, depressive. I'm not talking about depression, I'm talking about feeling depressive. You might numb. This was a bigger one for me than hyperarousal. I would numb, like I feel numb all the time. You feel like robotic, so not a lot of emotion, avoidance. You might be avoiding things. You might lose interest in people or interests that you have. That feeling hopelessness, isolation, which now is a big one. But if you're isolating more instead of connecting with people, just noticing that. Okay. So I want to go back up and just show you the diagram again. So this whole thing is what's called the window of tolerance. And when we're not really resilient to hyper or hypoarousal, that window is very small. Anyone who's been through any type of trauma, and I want to be very careful when I use that word because trauma means different things to different people. It's a big word, but trauma could be the way someone says something to you or the way your parent said something to you as a child, or it could be the opposite. It could be the extreme of being abused or somewhere again in the middle. So the more we don't learn to manage it, the smaller our window of tolerance gets. That optimal arousal gets very small. The more we learn to build our resiliency, the more we can handle situations and don't need food as much. So this is a big one for us, okay? Because if your window's small, you're more likely going to jump from hyper to hypoarousal, and the way you're going to soothe yourself is with food. If you're kind of in the middle zone and you build the tolerance to it, you're going to feel grounded more and not feel like you need the food, okay? So noticing for yourself if you naturally go more into hyperarousal or hypoarousal, or you could go to both. I know a lot of my clients go from one to the other. And this window, our goal is to build it up. So food, this is why I'm saying the food's trying to support you. Because I want you to think about what you do without the food. In your mind, you might not like that you're eating it as much, the amount you're eating, but in a way, it's your resource right now. So until we can build this optimal feeling, this optimal zone, the food's actually been a support. So the goal is not to punish yourself by eating or not eating. The goal is to build this so the food can just become food. It's not 100%, but I'd say if you can get it to majority of the time, you can handle situations without as much food or without the food and hurting yourself and numbing out, then you're doing really well. Okay. So here are some immediate tools of getting getting back into your body. So whether you're in hyperarousal or hypoarousal. So remember, hyperarousal is when we feel anxious, really on our head. For some of us, like your eyes feel like they're bulging out of your head. That's a big feeling that I used to get a lot and still do sometimes. Or the opposite is hypoarousal, when you feel really lethargic, depressive. We want to wake up the system by reconnecting to it. And how to do this, there are different ways. And it's going to depend on the situation. So the breathing, we're actually going to spend a couple minutes breathing. I'm really sorry if I go over today. I'm going to try not to, but we'll just spend 2 minutes again breathing because I want you again to start practicing this more. So close your eyes and take a deep breath. Just put your pens down. And I know you're in the zone with your mind, but I'm going to invite you to get into your body a little bit. So close your eyes, take a deep breath, and breathe in for 4. And exhale for 4. take your hands and have your fingers touching, the tips of your fingers touching. And if you want to open your eyes for a sec to see what I'm saying, it's fine. Put it on top of your stomach. And I want you to notice, you can either keep your eyes open for this or close them and just feel your fingers coming apart. But take a breath and notice if your fingers, as you take an inhale, do your fingers separate? And as you exhale, do they come back together? If it feels like you can't notice it, then you can put it a bit higher. And take a breath, noticing your fingers coming together and separating. As you notice your breath, this is your tummy breathing. It's actually diaphragmatic breathing, but you can notice it with your tummy rising and falling. And if that's not comfortable for you or you don't feel anything, you can just see your stomach rising and falling. So when we're not in our bodies, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of breathing and meditation, breathing exercises. This is a really quick tool where you can bring your awareness to your breath. That doesn't always work in these situations. So that's one tool. We're going to build this toolbox for you. Essential oils. So using our senses are huge for getting connected to our body. I'm a really big fan of essential oils. I would say that it's a tool I keep in my purse and my desk and in a lot of my rooms. If you're feeling overwhelmed and hyper or hypoarousal, you can just take the essential oil and smell it and connect to the smell. Notice what it feels like. Notice what it smells like. It's a great way, again, to get back into your body. Another great tool is, in regards to the essential oils, peppermint's a really good one to awaken you. Lavender's a really good one to relax you. Taking a bath, feeling the hot water, is really helpful too to get into your body. I still take them quite often, but I used to take them every night when I was working through a lot and getting connected to my body. I even add in essential oils. And if I was trying to stay more alert, I would add in peppermint. And if I wanted to relax more, I'd add in lavender. It's a great tool, again, to use to feel your body. Stretching is a great one as well. Again, we're trying to connect to our physical body so we can get grounded. So that optimal zone is being grounded. Jumping on a trampoline. I actually have my house is really messy, so I feel really guilty showing you this, but I have a mini trampoline there. I have the kids jump on it when they feel hyper aroused. I use it when I feel really overwhelmed. It's not about doing a ton of activity. It's just about reconnecting to your body. Not everyone has a trampoline. It's just an example of what you can use. On top of my trampoline, I don't know if you saw, I have a ball. It's another great thing to use. If you have an exercise ball, you can just bounce on it. And that's really powerful as well to connect you to your body. I'm going to come back to the weighted blanket, but if you don't have any tools, you don't need any tools. You can just jump, stomp the energy out, get connected to your body. You can put in your favorite song and just shake it out. It's really important to, again, bring the body into this. As I keep mentioning, emotional eaters live from the head up. I'm inviting you to have awareness of a new area in your body. And your body is probably it's very foreign. I know for me, there are parts of my body that I didn't feel for a really long time. So getting to know them it just feels different. So do it slowly, but start allowing, if you're 90% in your brain, allow your brain to have a bit of a break, maybe spend 75 or 80% there and get 10% in your body. The more you practice it, the more you're going to get to know your body. So you might wonder, because I was asked this recently, is what does that have to do with eating? When we live from the head up, we don't connect to, we're so focused on the mind, we have no idea how emotionally we're doing because we suppress it. Our emotions often live in our body. So we want to reconnect to the body so we can stop arguing with ourselves, especially about food. For a lot of you, if you've dieted and different things, food is, the focus. It's so frustrating for me when I see all the diets out there and they're focusing again from the outside in, and the healing comes from the inside out. So I'm inviting you to start healing from the inside out. It's not like a quick fix, but it is so supportive in healing your relationship with not just food, with yourself, trusting yourself, building your self-worth and self-confidence, giving your mind a break and being on your own side, if that makes sense. So not abandoning yourself. Okay, I got a bit off track. Sorry, I'm just passionate about that. So another tool you can use if you have is a weighted blanket. I know they're very popular right now. I don't have one, but some of my clients do. And if they feel overwhelmed and hyper arousal or even hypo, the weight of it feels really good. A lot of these tools are used for children as well to get them back in their body. So we're doing something similar. If you don't have a weighted blanket, if you have an animal, like I have a dog, I put my dog on me sometimes. You can take anything that has a bit of weight on it and put it on you. I'm just trying to think what else you can use. If you have a heavy blanket or like put a few blankets on you, you can feel the weight of it. A great one to do, and this is not exercise, I really want to be clear, but is doing some body work. So it's like lifting or pulling or push-ups or something, or lifting boxes and taking them to the garage. Anything where you can physically take something and move it, and it connects you to your body, your heartbeat. It will help support you. And this one, which some people feel comfortable with and some people don't, is calling somebody and expressing how you feel. That one, I should put an asterisk beside, because sometimes it actually doesn't help. It actually might feel worse. A lot of people tend to offer advice, and it might not be what you actually need. We often just need to feel heard and supported. So that's why I go back up to saying making sure you have a support system. Okay, so I want you to just take notes for yourself, and feel free to send them to me later if you want. I'm happy to read them. Notice if you usually go into hyper or hypoarousal. So take a minute or two and notice. You might be 50-50, but I want you to start building awareness to this. It's really important in all our healing. And I want you to write down how your body reacts. So I'm going to take it back and I'll show it to you again. I want you to write down, I'll start with hyperarousal, and I want you to write down, if you go into hyperarousal, which ones of these do you notice in yourself? Okay, and now I'm going to show you hypoarousal. And again, we're going to go into some more, you might go into hyperarousal more, but that doesn't mean you don't go into hypoarousal. So notice out of these ones, it might not be as frequent or it might be more frequent. Which ones of these do you notice the most? Okay. If you need that again, just let me know. I can email it to you. Our goal is to start building your toolbox for those immediate ways to support yourself, longer to support yourself, and notice when you're going to hyper or hypoarousal. Okay. So I want you to pick 2 tools that you can use in the long term, and 2 tools you can pick out for the short-term goals. I'm going to go back to the goals so you can see some of them. But when I say this, it's because we need both. Okay, so here are some immediate tools you can use that I mentioned in the moment. So when you're going for the food, it's not the optimal time to use these tools. I'd rather you use them more on a day-to-day basis. But pick 2 immediate tools that you can use right away. I don't want you to think of it as black and white. It's not that you're not eating or you're not going for the food or you're not feeling stressed. It's just something to connect to your body, and then do what you do. Okay, I worked when I worked with alcoholics, oftentimes it wasn't necessarily about not drinking. It was about noticing your body before you had the drink. When I worked in a hospital for pediatric obesity, and these kids, like their logic, it was about connecting to the body. So it wasn't about not having the food. It was about connecting to the body first. So I'm asking you and inviting you to do the same thing. Pick 2 things that are realistic for you for your immediate goals, for your longer term goals. So these are things that are not instant, but they're going to help build and support you. So if you're binging regularly or you're emotionally eating every day, maybe it will lower it by 10% or 20%. Start thinking of ways. So I really want you to get away from focusing on the food and saying, I need a plan for the food, and think about who you are and what you actually need. Do you need more routine? Do you need to talk to people that are less anxious? Do you need to watch less news? Do you need more people that are uplifting? That was a big one for me. In general, not this per se, but just in general, I needed more people that filled me and understood me. Think about what is going to support you. Okay, so I hope that section was helpful. What I'd recommend is implementing this week. So today is Thursday. Between now and next Thursday, picking 2 things on each and starting to implement it. Okay. If you have questions about that, let me know. If for those of you that want to take this further and want to start getting on this healing journey even more, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I'm offering right now, and it's I'm reintroducing my 8-week course because I find the support really important, empowering. So this 8-week course is all about feeding your hungry heart, and it's not really about the food, it's about fueling you. A lot of people have fear at this point, which makes a lot of sense, and there are different ways to manage fear. So if you can think of a child and they're panicking, they need some tenderness and to bring in that calm and grounded feeling. So that's going to be a big focus right now for those of you that are fearful. I'm going to walk through the practices in our sessions and do a lot of the inner work actually to connect you to the body and support you to stay grounded. Reconnect with your body. That's a really big one. So it's not about exercise, it's physically connecting to your body. I have a wonderful woman who does body movement coaching, and she understands this field quite a bit. So she's gonna do a session on connecting to the body with us, which I think is just really neat. Start learning. I mentioned this earlier. Start trusting yourself and learning to maybe not love yourself right away, but like yourself. This is who we live in. So we can get affirmations, we can get things from other people, but this is where we need to live. And this is who we go to sleep with every night and wake up with. So feeling that connection with yourself and having your own back, which is probably my favorite term. And it took me a long time to learn that. And I've created ways to support you to have the support. I did it on my own. So I've created supports for you to have that. I wrote in here, learn to heal your relationship with food. So this is a big topic, and it's why most of you are here. You can heal your relationship with food. Food is not the enemy, and you can befriend it. So if you want that piece of cake or you want something, having it from a place of groundedness and having it from a place of, you know what, that tastes good. Do I want it all? Maybe, maybe not. I'll listen to my body. So it's reconnecting with your body. Managing the feelings without numbing them. I've had a lot of trauma in my childhood, and I didn't even know I was numbing out. I would numb out all the time, but it was so familiar and so normal to me that I didn't know other people didn't do it. So when I finally started connecting with myself, I realized that numbing out was another way of escaping, and we want to live in our bodies. We want to connect to who we are. So learning to manage your feelings without numbing them. And building your toolbox. So I gave you a couple things, but the course is actually just learning to find new ways to comfort yourself, empowering yourself. So it's not just about the food, it's much bigger than that. Building self-esteem, self-worth, and coping with day-to-day life. So that's what my 8-week course is about. For those of you that are interested, I'm going to go over this. I'm going to go into the questions and ask you guys first, because you're here, what questions you have. And then I got about 20 questions written in. Then I'm going to go over some of them. So this is how the course works. for those that are interested. It's 6 weeks. It's an hour and a half each week for 6 weeks. And then the 7th week is going to be that body movement class. And then I'm going to add in the extra week. So there's 2 weeks in there where you can just ask me questions and have supports to support you. I already mentioned the body movement coach session. There's a private Facebook group. So what I did is I just ran this course in January and I paused it for a bit because of everything that was happening. And there was a group of women who really connected. And that support, I find, it's phenomenal. It's what helps everything. So I'm on there regularly answering questions, but a lot of times you want to hear from other people besides me. I also do meditations on there, different things. So this is your time, and during this period of time, it's about you. So you're going to, as much as you put into it, as much as you're going to get. I'm always there to support. Even if you don't do the course, you can always reach out to me. It's really nice to have goals and support each other. I'm going to teach you practical tools to help you reach your goals. You have access to the recording. So if you can't make the calls, the access is there. So you can listen to it whenever. I remember taking a course and they're like, you have lifetime access. I was like, great. And I tried to get on a few months later and I was like, what happened? Like, oh, lifetime access means until the course is done. And it made no sense to me. So you're going to have these tools here for as long as you want them. And the recordings are going to be there for you. And I already mentioned the access to the group. So a lot of the women that took the course went into the monthly group where I do a call once a month and they support each other and I check in with them. And those of you, there's another, if you want to continue with that, you're more than welcome to. But what's important here is that you get the foundations and you have a supportive group to start this healing. So that's a little bit about the course. It's starting the 28th. So in about 10 days, because I wanted to add in something else. So there's something that's important. I can say to you that you can join, you should join, you may want to join. If you're going to commit, there's 12 spots. 2 of them, I think people just found them on my website and joined. So there's 10 spots left for this round, and I'll do another round at some point. This is a commitment to yourself. I care less about you committing to me. I don't literally mean that, but this is about you committing to yourself. And if you want support to shift, then join. If you don't feel that it's a good fit for you or you're not wanting it and you're wanting like a diet or something, this is not for you. If you have questions about that, email me and I can recommend some dietitians, but it's not about the food for many of us. So, and those of you who want to commit to themselves before in the next couple of days, like before Monday, I'm offering a one-on-one session where I have a session with you throughout our time together, and I create a plan just for you to help you through your needs that you need the most. The other option is I'm offering this time around because of everything going on, a discounted price by $50 for the course. The course is $349, and so you have one of the options you can choose, whatever feels right for you. Okay, so I hope that made sense. I'm going to put the link in, I'll put it in the chat. So if anyone wants to see the link and read more information, know that it's there. I'll do that now. So with everything I spoke about, I'd love to hear if anyone has questions. As I mentioned, because everyone's here and spending their time here, I want to answer your questions before the ones that people wrote in. So feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions at all. And if not, I'm happy to, or you can write in the chat room. And if not, I'm happy to go into the questions that people wrote in. So I'll give you a minute and see if anyone wants to write in a question. That's the course information. Okay, I'm gonna go with the questions and then just jump on if you wanna ask a question, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna choose some of them to answer and then feel free to email me if I didn't answer it in the way you wanted. Okay, so how can I get away from using food as a crutch? Great question. Similarly to what I said, it's less about the food. It's about the food, but it's not about the food because it has more to do with what you're doing around the food. What's causing you to turn to food. A big thing actually, which is really important, is do you stand up for yourself? Do you make sure that you're a priority? Do you implement self-care? And I don't mean going for manicures or pedicures per se. I mean, do you support yourself and have time for you and prioritize yourself without guilt? So that's just one aspect, but I think it's really important to focus on the things that are going on around you as opposed to just the food. Not everyone wants to hear that, and I respect that, but that's kind of where I find that over this past 17 years, people get the best results with checking in and connecting to themselves, and food will come. Like, your relationship with food will naturally heal. And for those of you, I got another question about wanting to lose weight. That person, whoever wrote that in, and I've gotten that a couple of times, if the weight needs to come off, it will come off because you're not going to be turning to food as much. That's what happened with me. I mean, I lost quite a bit of weight because of that, but it wasn't through dieting and beating myself up. So I hope that made sense. Let's focus on the other things. Okay. How do you handle your compulsive eating when you are aware that your situation will not change? Okay. So, we want to work on the situation. It doesn't mean that someone else has to change. I don't know the situation that this person's writing about, so you can feel free to email me. But if your situation is not going to change, then we need to change your relationship to the situation. So it depends. I've worked with people that have been in challenging relationships, that live at home with their parents, and that's really challenging, or different things going on, or a sick family member. There are a lot of things going on, and we want to help support you to manage the way you deal with it and not lose yourself. I know there's such an old analogy about the airplane and putting a mask on yourself first. And I'm going to bring that up because it's really important that we take care of yourself first. If you're a parent, we often know that we put kids before us, and naturally that's what we tend to do. But the way we can support people around us, not just kids, is by honoring ourselves and not building resentment towards other people, by honoring ourselves and then taking care of other people. Okay, so I got a couple questions about how to stop binge eating. I answered that. How can I control my overeating? I can't seem to be satiated with what I eat and feel like a bottomless pit. Okay, so with that, what if you notice when you turn to food, it doesn't actually meet the need. Okay, what's actually happening is you're filling a void and it's not getting filled. That's why the food is not satiating you. What we're actually looking for is something deeper, and what we're actually looking for is to have a need met. So that's kind of the work I talk a lot about in the course. But doesn't mean you need to do that. You can also take a look at different books, but not focusing on controlling the food. Notice how a lot of the questions I'm answering, a lot of people write in, how do I control the food? How do I control the food? It's less about the food. When you get your needs met, oftentimes it has to do with love, like feeling loved and cared for, or having your own time for yourself, or having a voice. That need can get filled up without food. So I think it's really important to separate it. Okay. Another one. How do I have a healthy relationship with food but still lose weight? A lot of body positive sites are great, but I struggle finding balance. Yeah. Body positivity is a great concept. I think it's real. So when I worked in the pediatric obesity clinic, I dealt with a lot of children, but I also dealt with a lot of the parents who didn't want to, who struggled with weight, and they had health issues because of it. So some of them came in and talked about loving their body, which is beautiful, but body positivity and harming your body, and I want to be very careful here how I say this, they're two different things. Like like loving your body is one thing, no matter what happens to it, this is your home. But then we also don't want to harm yourself, right, with the food. So when we stop harming ourselves with the food, we can then start having an excess weight we need to lose come off. And the body positivity is starting to, I believe in it. I believe it's important to love your body. It's also important to love your soul, love who you are, and start listening and stop abandoning yourself. Many of us abandon ourselves, and then we just try to bring the language in of I love myself. I'm going to be body positive. But there's so much more to it than just the words. And I really want to be careful here because the words are really important as well. There's just a piece I find that's often missing with if we just focus on body positivity. I hope that answered your question. Whoever asked that, if it did not, please email me. I don't think I was so articulate with that answer. I don't want to obsess over food as I have in the past, but I need to do this to an extent to lose weight. Okay, so I addressed some of that. When we obsess about food, it's like walking on a tightrope. We don't want to walk on that tightrope. We want to have peace with food. Okay? And to do that, it's focusing on the other things that I've mentioned. I've gotten a couple of questions. I'm going to go to those ones. Emily, I just wanted to say thank you so much. Oh, you're very welcome. Everything you said tonight really resonated with me, and I'm lost for words right now. A lot of reflecting to do. Over the next couple of days, questions will come to mind. Feel free to email me whenever you want. That's great. I'm glad you're interested in the program. As I mentioned, there's 10 spots left. 2 people have already joined. So feel free to join that if it feels right for you. And if it's not the right time, then you'll know when it is the right time. Another question, what are your thoughts on keeping trigger foods in the house or not? That is a really good question. So this one gets a bit tricky because I can't answer this with a clear answer. I'm going to go over time. For those of you that have to leave, I completely understand. I'm going to stay here and answer it. So if I miss your question, again, you can email me after. So trigger foods they're tricky because foods naturally have some qualities that make you want more. So it depends what your trigger foods are, is number one. But what I'd say is possibly looking at what is it about the trigger foods. If your mind's obsessing about it, it might be easier right now not to have it in the house, to be honest, but not walking on a tightrope. So just doing it from a place of this doesn't feel very good for me to have in the house because I'm obsessing about it. As I work through all this, I'm going to introduce them when it feels right and I'm not so scared of them. Because if you think about it, if you're just sitting there and thinking about the food and it's overwhelming or taking up your mental space, that's not really healthy either. We want to get to a place where you have a good relationship with food, but there may be other work that you want to focus on first. If it feels like you're running out and binging on the stuff, then you can't keep it in the house. I read years ago, I actually tried Janine Roth's work, who I admire her very much. For those of you that don't know her, she's great. She talks a lot about having the foods that you love and just having them in the house and eating mindfully. And I do agree that's a great plan. It didn't work for me at the beginning until I got connected to my body and started recognizing that I needed to work through other things and then focus on the mindful eating. So I hope that made sense. Another question is, what happens in the group? How do you interact with everyone equally? Okay, great question. So I've found that every group I've run is very respectful of one another. And it's my job to ensure that everyone has equal amount of time. And I really honor that because I know when I did groups, I was very quiet. And other people kind of took over and other people were really they spoke a lot. So as a person that's running it, I set up some boundaries rules right off the bat, and everyone has enough time to communicate and express. That being said, someone might have more time in one session, but it does equal out. And for those of you that find that you struggle with expressing yourself, some people email me questions. I mean, I'm very focused on the group during the time it's running and even after. So I really focus on honoring the person and what their needs are. Keep in mind that it is a group support, so I don't do a ton of, I'm not going to send emails every day to a person, but I want you to know that I'm there to support you. This is about your journey and making sure that you feel like you are connected and getting your needs met. I do work with people one-on-one. My practice is really full right now, but feel free to email me and I can chat with you about that. I might refer you to someone else, or if you want to work directly with me, I can tell you what my openings are. They're slim, but I do have a bit right now, so we can definitely talk about that. Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Thank you. I know some people have to jump off right now. Um, I feel like since I've been binging and restricting for so long and started intermittent fasting, I've completely lost touch with what normal eating looks like. I know you said it's less about the food. Will you be covering what normal eating is, relearning normal eating in this course? Yes. So I purposely put that closer to the end because I want you to have some other foundations. I want you to think about how long you've been dealing with this for. And if I jump right into the food, your body is going to, your mind and body are not going to feel safe. It's the way it is. All the research I've done, all the people I've worked with, we need to build a foundation. We will get to the food. We lose sight of our hunger signal. So you can think of a child who's born and right away they know when they're hungry and when they're full. We lose that along the way. And what I want to focus on is first getting connected to our body so we can actually feel them, and then relearning our hunger signals to then eventually start trusting yourself with food. But there's a few steps before that. But yes, I go over that. I talk about normal eating. I talk about how to support yourself and not make it about weight loss, knowing that if your body naturally needs to lose weight, trusting that it will happen. Okay. Let me know if anyone has any other questions. I think I answered everyone's questions on here. I did not get to all the questions that were sent in. I'm just seeing if there's another one that, if I've not answered your question, please feel free to email me. I will answer them. It might take me a day or two, but I'm happy to answer them. I'm sorry I couldn't get to everyone's emails. If anyone on here has any other questions, please let me know. I'll be sending out this recording. Thank you guys so much for attending. It was such a pleasure I feel like the energy in here is really good. And although I can't see many of you, hear you, I really appreciate everyone that's here. Have a great evening, and please let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them. Take care.